Apprenons l'anglais en contexte.
How did you find the landscape in Turkey? It's a mixture of European and Oriental scenery.
Scenery est un synonyme de landscape qui signifie paysage.
It's a mixture of European and Oriental scenery.
Obviously, it was amazing, right? Like the Blue Mosque in Istanbul itself. I even have photographs, like print photographs.
Des photos imprimées.
Print photographs that I haven't looked at in a long time. Cappadocia, right? The underground cities in Cappadocia. I remember Ankara. I remember the Mediterranean. But it's all just kind of like highlights, right?
You started then traveling as a couple. So tell me a little bit about the challenges of this. Things like balancing interest.
Équilibrer les intérêts.
Balancing interest.
Yeah.
Favorite destinations.
Yeah, I don't think we think about it that much. I think that in general, again, we're fortunate enough to travel. So our travel isn't around any sort of a business. It's not around influencing anybody. It's not about social media. It's not about taking pictures. It's really just doing what we want to do and what is within reach.
À portée de main.
What is within reach, right? So, one of the things, and we both love food, right? So that's a big thing. We both come from very different backgrounds. I mean, I was fortunate enough to travel at a fairly early age. My wife is from the Philippines. We didn't get the opportunity to travel a lot, right? So everything is cool and new to us. And so we don't really seek out anything in particular. One of the best destinations that we have a lot of good memories of is St. Louis in Missouri. And that came about, there was a fair sale there.
Fair sale. Vente de billets.
There was a fair sale there from where we were. And it was reasonable price. The food is out of this world. The people are fantastic. So it's like really nothing exotic. And I would also say that it's changed even more now that we have our son who's 10. Because really he's kind of dictating where we go. Again, it's not about us, it's about him. So, he's interested in the military, he's interested in tanks.
Tanks, c'est ce qu'on appelle en français les chars ou chariots de combat.
He's interested in tanks. Let's go to the Tank Museum in England, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every place has something to offer.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this when you've done most of your trips as a couple?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
We had our son fairly late, so we spent a lot of time traveling, probably wasting money. If you know the real estate market everywhere, I mean, probably should have spent it on property.
Mm-hmm.
But I did a fair amount of traveling prior to that.
Avant.
Prior to that. And so, yeah, quite a lot.
You talked about wasting money, and that makes a perfect transition to what I will call the travel tips. So tell me a little bit about the importance of budgeting in short-term and long-term trips, planning as in general. I don't know how far you've been, maybe to other continents, then the health aspects as well.
Yeah. Fortunate enough that we've done a lot of our traveling when health wasn't really a concern.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of our worst health experience was probably catching some kind of foodborne virus bacteria in the Philippines.
Nous avons attrapé une sorte de virus d'origine alimentaire.
And my wife and I were hospitalized for like a week in the Philippines.
Wow.
That was the worst. And no matter what you do, taking medicine, vaccinations, stuff happens, right? And we're really fortunate that was before we had our son and didn't fall ill, right? Budgeting, travel is so important. Like, I don't ever regret it. Definitely been to lots of exotic places, I guess. Been to lots of far-flung places.
Des lieux très éloignés les uns des autres.
Far-flung places, whatever. And we do like to travel in reasonable comfort. But obviously the challenge is from Canada, I find that a lot of Canadians probably don't have a lot of expendable income.
Revenus dépensables, en l'occurrence dans les voyages.
Expendable income.
Right.
Travel. Unlike some other places, or even a lot of time. And a lot of Canada, it's a big country, is quite remote, right? So it's a challenge, but you know, it's a decision, and especially for our son, I think.
Are you reminiscent?
To be reminiscent of something, se souvenir, se ressasser de quelque chose.
Are you reminiscent of any challenging experience, I will call it so, in one of your destinations?
Yeah, you know, I mean, everything brings challenges, and I mean, I think my wife would remind me, you know, I mean, I think that probably getting a shorter temper as I get older and less patient. But when you look back and you realize that, you know, they wasn't really a big deal, wasn't really a challenge, right? You got through it, and also having people to rely on.
Avoir des personnes sur qui compter.
Having people to rely on, right? I mean, being in the Philippines when we got sick, I mean, having people that could take care of us and that you could trust was definitely a big thing. Probably my most extreme challenge, I guess, and you know, not having the context or being from the culture, you really don't know how serious it was when I was in Pakistan, and this was before I was married. I had this silly idea to travel and see a lot of cultural heritage sites around the world. And Pakistan, I visited Mohenjo-daro and the necropolis of Anglais and Lahore and a lot of places, but I came into Karachi, which is the capital of Pakistan. Stupidly, I chose it because at the time, Cathay Pacific had a round-the-world fair.
Une foire mondiale.
Cathay Pacific had a round-the-world fair. And the furthest that you could go on Cathay Pacific was Karachi. So I thought, let's start there and come back. You know, yeah, travel's changed so much, but I landed in Karachi. There was this guy that I connected with on the internet through like some travel forum or something, because the internet was a lot more trusting.
Fiable.
Trusting, I feel, in the early days. And staying at his place with a couple of students in the defense district of Karachi. And this was probably in the early 2000s at least, maybe even earlier. And, you know,
there was still a lot of trouble in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually after September 11th in the States, but there was still a lot going on. So yeah, probably not the best travel destination to choose. Staying with a bunch of students, and I was walking outside one day, and I was accosted by some police, and they basically said that they wanted to see my passport, that I shouldn't be there, that they were going to arrest me, all this jazz.
Tout ce tralala.
All this jazz, and I've probably forgotten the details. But they did let me go, and I went back and explained the experience to the guys that I was staying with. And one of them said, oh yeah, that's a huge problem. You better give me your passport. I'll go clear it up, blah, blah, blah. And I was just scared, right? I was pretty young, right? And it turns out when I was talking to the fellow that I'd originally met there, that, you know, the guy that was staying with them and the police were trying to get some money from me, and they were talking to each other, and they were just trying to extort some money from me.
Et voilà, pour plus de contenu, abonnez-vous et activez la cloche de notification. À présent, essayez de faire un bref résumé de la conversation dans les commentaires pour évaluer votre compréhension. J'ai conçu un outil de pratique qui vous permettra d'être en contact au quotidien avec la langue anglaise. Vous aurez l'occasion de vous enregistrer, d'écouter votre voix, mais aussi d'obtenir un feedback, des corrections, tantôt au niveau de la grammaire que du vocabulaire, des activités de listening bien structurées et départagées en fonction des niveaux. Tout cela en plus des séances interactives en direct que vous aurez avec moi à travers la pratique de l'oral et l'écoute constante. Vous pourrez réaliser enfin ce rêve longtemps nourri de passer à un niveau supérieur de fluidité en anglais. Je vous laisse tous les détails en description et en commentaire. Let's get into it.